Hello, Bible readers. It is Wednesday, October 14th. We're reading Psalm 91, the first three chapters of Joshua. On the calendar, it looks weird, like we're only reading parts of the third chapter of Joshua. What I meant to write was Joshua 1 through 3, and then Luke chapter 12, verses 35 to 59. Psalm 91 is actually what my morning musing was about this morning. And so if you want to hear more about that psalm of trust, which is the psalm that is the basis for that song, and I will bear you up on eagle's wings. If you want to hear more about that, catch my morning musing that I post on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Luke chapter 12, verses 35 to 59. This has the very end of the first text, pericope, if I've used that word yet. That's just a little section or its own little story or own little part of a gospel text. So the first story that we are working with today ends with a saying that has really meant a lot to me. To those whom much is given, much is expected. That's a thought from Luke. Much will be required of the person to whom much has been given. More will be demanded of the person to whom much has been entrusted. This is a story about how authority is given to leaders that they may lead. Authority is not given to any human because that human deserves to live better off than every other human. We see this in Moses as he is leading the Israelites through the wilderness. Moses is not given the authority that he has for his own sake. He is given that authority that he may lead the people into the promised land and be the tribes of Israel that they've been called to be. Lead others in good work. Authority is given for the sake of the work to be done, not for one's own sake. Of course, this is directed right at the Pharisees, the chief priests, and the scribes, right? That's where Jesus is aiming these words at. And of course, the other side of this, it isn't just an encouragement to, okay, if you've been given authority, then don't just take it for your own sake that you may be important among those around you. But it's also to lead. Then on the flip side of that, Jesus is saying, the greater your authority, the greater will be the judgment. And so that's the side that can be, this is where the fear and love of the Lord comes in. Have some fear that if you have been given the privilege of authority, then part of that privilege is to know that there will be greater judgment. The second part of our Luke chapter 12 readings is that the people must discern the signs and decide. As much as there are responsibilities for those who find themselves in places of authority, there's also a responsibility among everybody else that they must discern the signs and make a decision. And Jesus is saying basically, if you can't make a decision with me here, it's going to get tougher in the judgment to come. Joshua, as we enter into a new book in the Old Testament, it begins with the entry of God's people into the Holy Land. My Lutheran Study Bible has some notes as a way of introduction. That which is happening, the action that's taking place, is probably something that happens around the 13th century before Jesus. It's probably written 600 years later, about 7th century before Jesus. And it's probably written in the 7th century when Israel are facing the threat of foreign invasion. That's why they've written down what they all talk about as stories from the time of Joshua, because Joshua had to be faithful. And a lot of the lessons that Israel learned from Joshua's conquest of Canaan will be lessons that they could really use in the 7th century. Another piece I want to just describe, Joshua in Hebrew means the Lord saves. Jesus in Aramaic means the Lord saves. There is a similarity here, Jesus to Joshua. Joshua does what Joshua does in violence, great violence. We are going to be disturbed in these first 12 or so chapters by how violent this book is. Jesus, of course, saves not through violence like Joshua does. Jesus saves through peace. You can see why the people of Jesus' day were thinking, okay, we want a Messiah. Here's what we expect our Messiah to be like. We expect a Joshua figure. He's even got the same name. And so Jesus really turns the world upside down for all who knew the stories of the Old Testament. And so you're going to read today about Joshua being commissioned, the destruction of Jericho with Rahab's help. Rahab is a very important figure here. And then the crossing of the Jordan. And I'll say more about that tomorrow. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.